The aroma of homemade lasagna wafted through Vivian Parker's modest kitchen as she wiped flour-covered hands on her worn apron. Outside her window, autumn leaves spiraled down onto Maple Street, painting the suburban landscape in warm, amber hues. At 34, with tired eyes that had seen too many sleepless nights and shoulders that carried the weight of raising two 8-year-old boys alone, Vivian still managed to find joy in small moments, like tonight's impromptu dinner with Officer Michael Reeves. "Mum, is the police officer staying for dessert too?" Jackson, the more outspoken of her twins, bounced on his toes while setting mismatched plates on their scratched dining table. "Only if he wants to, sweetheart." "And remember, it's Officer Reeves, not the police officer," Vivian corrected gently, checking the bubbling cheese on her grandmother's recipe. The boys had taken an immediate liking to Michael after he'd helped them retrieve their basketball from Mrs. Henderson's roof earlier that afternoon. An act of kindness that had ended with her impulsively inviting him to dinner. Daniel, the quieter twin with a perpetual furrow between his brows, methodically arranged forks and knives with mathematical precision. "Will he bring his gun to the table?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "No, honey. And it's not polite to ask about that," Vivian said, though she wondered the same thing. Having a police officer at their dinner table was uncharted territory. The doorbell chimed at precisely 6 o'clock. Michael Reeves stood on her porch out of uniform, but still carrying himself with unmistakable authority. He'd brought a bottle of sparkling cider and a nervous smile. "I wasn't sure what was appropriate," he admitted, handing her the bottle. "I remembered you mentioned the boys like apple juice." Something about his thoughtfulness made Vivian's chest tighten. It had been 3 years since Thomas had walked out, leaving her with infant twins and a mountain of debt. 3 years of microwave dinners eaten standing up, of stretching every dollar until it screamed, of telling the boys that Daddy was just away for work until they stopped asking. Having someone, anyone, remember a small detail about her children felt like finding water in a desert. Dinner progressed with surprising ease. Michael charmed the boys with stories of rescuing cats from trees and directing traffic during the town's annual parade. He listened intently when Jackson described his science project on volcanoes and nodded seriously when Daniel quietly shared his collection of unusual rocks. By the time they reached dessert, a simple apple crumble that Vivian had thrown together that morning, it felt as though they'd known him for years rather than hours. "So," Michael said, accepting a second helping of crumble. "How long have you lived in Oak Ridge?" "Almost 9 years now," Vivian replied, refilling his glass with cider. "We came for Thomas's job at the pharmaceutical company. After he left, it just seemed easier to stay put." She hadn't meant to mention Thomas, and the momentary flash of vulnerability made her cheeks warm. Michael nodded, his expression neutral but kind. "It's a good town, safe neighborhoods, decent schools." "Most days," Vivian agreed, though lately she'd noticed changes. The previously friendly neighborhood had grown more closed off. New residents had moved into the blue house across the street 6 months ago, but unlike previous neighbors, they kept to themselves. Strange cars appeared at odd hours, staying briefly before departing. She'd mentioned it once to her neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, who had simply pressed her lips together and said, "Best to mind your own business, dear." As if reading her thoughts, Michael's gaze shifted to her window, which framed a view of the street. "You notice anything unusual around here lately?" The question carried a weight that seemed to change the air in the room. Before Vivian could respond, Jackson interrupted. "Can we show Officer Reeves our fort in the backyard? Please, Mom." "It's getting dark, honey," Vivian started, but Michael's face lit up. "I'd love to see it. Every fort needs a security inspection, right?" He winked at the boys, who erupted in excitement. While the twins raced ahead to prepare their fortress for official inspection, Michael lingered in the kitchen doorway. "Vivian," he said, his voice lowered, "I need to ask you something important, but not in front of the boys." The seriousness in his tone sent a chill through her. "Is something wrong?" He hesitated. Have you noticed anything unusual about the neighbors across the street?" "The blue house." The question confirmed her unspoken suspicions. "Why do you ask?" "Professional curiosity," he replied, but his eyes told a different story. "Let's talk after I inspect this fort I've heard so much about." The backyard fort inspection was a grand success, with Michael solemnly declaring it structurally sound and strategically positioned. As the boys demonstrated their secret handshake for entering, Vivian observed Michael scanning the neighboring yards with trained eyes. When he caught her watching, he offered a reassuring smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Later, after she'd tucked the twins into bed with promises that Officer Reeves might visit again someday, Vivian found him standing at her kitchen window, staring at the blue house across the street. "They're not just unfriendly neighbors, are they?" she asked quietly, joining him. Michael turned to her, conflict evident in his expression. "I can't say much. But I think you should take the boys to visit your mother this weekend. Didn't you mention she lives in Wisconsin?" "Michigan," Vivian corrected automatically, her heart beginning to race. "Michael, you're scaring me." He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "It's just a precaution. Sometimes things happen in neighborhoods, operations that are better conducted when fewer civilians are around." "Operations?" The word hung in the air between them. Michael checked his watch. "I should go." "Thank you for dinner. It was the best meal I've had in months." He moved toward the door but paused. "Pack essentials for a few days. Leave early tomorrow, before 7 if possible." "You're serious," Vivian whispered, the reality of his warning sinking in. He nodded once, then reached into his pocket and handed her a business card. "My personal number. Call when you get to your mother's." After he left, Vivian stood frozen in her kitchen, the remnants of their shared meal still scattered across the table. Through the window, she could see lights in the blue house across the street, shadows moving behind drawn curtains. What had seemed like an ordinary evening had somehow shifted into something else entirely, something that sent her to her closet for the emergency duffel bag she'd prepared after watching too many natural disaster documentaries. As she packed essentials for herself and the boys, questions multiplied in her mind. What was happening across the street? Why had Michael really come to dinner? And most troublingly, had she and her sons been in danger without even knowing it? Vivian closed the blinds and double-checked the locks on her doors and windows. Tomorrow they would drive to her mother's lake house in Michigan. But tonight, she would lie awake, watching the blue house across the street and wondering what storm was about to break over their quiet neighborhood. Vivian woke with a start at 4:30 a.m., though woke implied she had slept. In truth, she had drifted in and out of anxious consciousness all night, one eye on the digital clock, the other on her phone, waiting for a message from Michael that never came. Outside her window, the blue house remained dark and still, yet somehow more menacing than ever. "Just a precaution," she whispered to herself, repeating Michael's words as she slipped out of bed. The wooden floor creaked beneath her feet as she moved through the pre-dawn darkness of her home, gathering last-minute items. In the kitchen, she scribbled a note to Mrs. Henderson about watering her plants and left it on the counter. Waking the twins proved easier than expected. The novelty of a surprise trip to Grandma's lake house overrode their usual morning grumpiness. They rubbed sleep from their eyes with tiny fists, while Vivian helped them dress in the semi-darkness. "Why are we leaving so early, Mom?" Daniel asked, his voice thick with sleep as she zipped his blue hoodie. "To beat the traffic, honey," Vivian replied, the lie tasting bitter on her tongue. She had always prided herself on honesty with her children, but this morning felt different. How could she explain what she herself didn't understand? "Can Officer Reeves come with us?" Jackson asked, struggling into his sneakers. The innocent question twisted something in Vivian's chest. "Not this time, sweetheart. He has important work to do here." By 5:45 a.m. the car was packed. The boys were buckled in the back seat with their favorite stuffed animals, and Vivian was backing out of the driveway. As she turned onto Maple Street, her headlights swept across a dark sedan parked 2 houses down. Through the rearview mirror, she caught the briefest glimpse of someone inside, watching, her hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Mom, you forgot to bring Grandma's present," Jackson pointed out as they reached the end of their street. "What present, honey?" Vivian asked, distracted by scanning for more unfamiliar vehicles. "The one in the blue box under your bed." "You said it was for Grandma's birthday next week." Vivian felt a chill wash over her. She had indeed wrapped a scarf for her mother's upcoming birthday, but she had never told the boys about it, nor had she stored it under her bed. The box under her bed contained important documents, birth certificates, social security cards, the deed to the house, and an envelope of emergency cash. "We'll get Grandma something on the way," she replied smoothly, though her mind raced. How did Jackson know about a blue box under her bed? Had the boys been playing in her room, Or was there something more concerning at play? The highway stretched before them as dawn broke, painting the sky in watercolor hues of pink and orange. In the back seat, the twins had fallen asleep again, heads lolling against their booster seats. Vivian allowed herself a moment of relief. They were away from whatever might happen on Maple Street today. 2 hours into the drive, her phone rang. Michael's name flashed on the screen. "Are you clear?" he asked when she answered, his voice tense. "Yes, we left before 6. We're about halfway to my mother's." She kept her voice low, glancing at the sleeping boys in the rearview mirror. "Good," he exhaled audibly. "Things are happening earlier than expected. The entire street is being evacuated right now." Vivian's blood ran cold. Evacuated? "Michael, what's going on?" A pause. "I can't give you details over the phone, but what I can say is that your dinner invitation last night might have saved lives." "What? How?" "The neighbors, the ones in the blue house, they've been under surveillance for months. We had intel that something big was planned for today, but we weren't sure of the exact location or time. When I was at your house, I noticed activity that confirmed our suspicions." Vivian struggled to process his words. "So you weren't just a friendly cop helping with a basketball?" Another pause. "The basketball was real, but I'd been assigned to do a casual patrol of the street. Your invitation gave me a perfect observation point." The revelation stung more than it should have. Had their entire dinner been nothing but convenient cover for his investigation? The easy conversation, his interest in the boys, was it all professional pretense? "I see," she said finally, surprised by the hurt in her voice. "Vivian," Michael said, his tone softening. "The dinner was unexpected, and it was the best part of my week. That wasn't pretend." She wanted to believe him, but found herself wondering which parts of their evening had been genuine and which had been tactical. Before she could respond, her phone beeped with an incoming call. Her mother. "I need to take this," she told Michael. "It's my mom." "Of course. Call me when you arrive safely." He hesitated. "And Vivian? Thank you for everything." She switched calls, greeting her mother with forced cheerfulness while promising to explain everything upon arrival. As she hung up, a notification appeared on her phone screen, a news alert from the Oak Ridge Daily. Breaking. Major FBI operation underway in East Side neighborhood. Residents evacuated from Maple Street and surrounding areas. Sources report potential domestic terror threat. Vivian nearly swerved off the road. Domestic terror? On their quiet street? She pulled into the next rest stop, hands shaking too badly to continue driving. As the car idled, she opened the news app and read the developing story. Details were scarce, but the article mentioned a sophisticated cell operating out of a residential property and potential chemical agents, the Blue House, the strange comings and goings, the new neighbors who never introduced themselves or participated in community events. It all made a horrifying kind of sense now. "Mom, are we at Grandma's already?" Daniel's sleepy voice came from the back seat. Vivian quickly closed the news app. "Not yet, sweetie. Just taking a quick break." "I'm hungry," Jackson announced, fully awake now. "Me too," echoed Daniel. Vivian checked the time, almost 9 o'clock. "There's a diner at this rest stop. Let's get some breakfast." Inside the cheerful roadside diner, with its vinyl booths and waitresses calling everyone hon, Vivian ordered pancakes for the boys while she sipped black coffee and checked news updates on her phone. The operation on Maple Street was expanding, with reports now mentioning over 100 FBI agents and specialized hazmat teams. "Mom, why do you keep looking at your phone? You said no phones during meals," Jackson reminded her, syrup dripping from his chin. Vivian set her phone down guiltily. "You're right. I'm sorry." As the boys devoured their breakfast, Vivian noticed a television mounted in the corner of the diner, tuned to a national news channel. The sound was muted, but the crawling text at the bottom of the screen caught her attention. "Breaking FBI thwarts major terror plot in Midwest suburb." Then, to her horror, aerial footage of her neighborhood appeared on screen. Police barricades blocked off Maple Street. People in hazmat suits entered the Blue House. And there in the background was her home, the little yellow house with the twins' basketball hoop in the driveway. "Mom, that's our street," Daniel exclaimed, following her gaze to the television. Before Vivian could respond, Jackson added, "And that's Officer Reeves!" He pointed excitedly at the screen, where Michael could indeed be seen conferring with other officials near a command center set up in the middle of the street. "Why is our street on TV?" Daniel asked, his brow furrowing with concern. Vivian took a deep breath. The boys deserved some version of the truth. "Something happened in our neighborhood, and the police are taking care of it. That's why we're going to Grandma's for a few days." "Is that why Officer Reeves told you to leave?" Jackson asked innocently. Vivian froze. "What do you mean, honey? When did Officer Reeves tell me that?" "Last night. I got up to get water and heard him say we should go to Grandma's before 7 o'clock. A chill ran down Vivian's spine. She had thought the boys were asleep when she had that conversation with Michael. What else had Jackson overheard? "And did you hear anything else?" she asked carefully. Jackson shrugged, returning to his pancakes. "Just that the blue house has bad guys in it. That's why I told you about the blue box under your bed. I thought maybe they were connected." Daniel looked between them, confusion evident on his face. "What blue box?" "Nothing important," Vivian assured him quickly, though her mind was racing. Jackson's innocent connection between the blue house and her blue document box was coincidental, but his eavesdropping raised new concerns. How much danger had they really been in? As they finished breakfast and returned to the car, Vivian's phone rang again. This time, it was an unknown number. "Ms. Parker?" a formal female voice inquired when she answered. "This is Special Agent Diane Foster with the FBI. I'm calling regarding the situation on Maple Street." Vivian's heart pounded as she closed the car door, leaving the boys inside while she stepped away to take the call. "Yes, that's me. Is everything okay? Our house—" "Your property is secure," Agent Foster assured her. "We have a protective perimeter established. However, we need to ask you some questions about your neighbors and any interactions you may have had with them." "I barely knew them," Vivian replied. "They moved in about 6 months ago but kept to themselves. Officer Reeves mentioned you had expressed some concerns about activity at the residence." Vivian hesitated, glancing back at the car where the twins were engrossed in their handheld games. "Just unusual comings and goings. Cars visiting late at night, packages being delivered at odd hours." "Did you ever speak with any of the occupants directly?" "Just once. A man, middle-aged, glasses, brown hair, introduced himself as Robert when they first moved in. Said his family valued their privacy due to his work as a pharmaceutical researcher. The irony of his claimed profession matching her ex-husband's wasn't lost on her. There was a pause on the line. "Miss Parker, your observation skills are impressive. The information you provided to Officer Reeves last night corroborated key intelligence. Your dinner invitation, while coincidental, provided crucial timing advantages for our operation." Pride and fear battled within Vivian. "So we were in danger? My boys?" "I can't discuss specifics of an ongoing operation," Agent Foster replied diplomatically, "but I can tell you that your decision to leave when advised was the correct one. We'll need a formal statement from you, but that can wait until the situation is fully contained." As the call ended, Vivian leaned against the car, processing everything. Their quiet life on Maple Street had somehow intersected with something dangerous and far-reaching. And Michael, was he truly just a patrol officer who happened to be in the right place, or was there more to his presence on their street yesterday? With questions multiplying in her mind, Vivian returned to the car and continued their journey to her mother's lake house, where safety awaited, along with explanations she wasn't sure she was ready to give. Grandma Joyce's lake house stood like a sentinel at the edge of Lake Michigan, its weathered blue siding and white trim a familiar comfort to Vivian. As she guided the car down the gravel driveway, the twins unbuckled their seatbelts before she'd even put the vehicle in park. "Grandma!" they shouted in unison, tumbling out toward the silver-haired woman waiting on the porch steps, arms outstretched. "My boys!" Joyce enveloped them in a hug that smelled of cinnamon and home. Over their heads, her eyes met Vivian's with unspoken questions. After settling the twins with cookies and cartoons, Joyce led Vivian to the back porch, overlooking the lake. "Now tell me what's really going on," she said, passing Vivian a mug of tea. "The news is showing you're street-crawling with FBI agents in hazmat suits." Vivian's carefully constructed composure crumbled. Between sobs, she recounted everything. The dinner with Michael, his warning, the news reports about domestic terrorism, and Agent Foster's call. "Good Lord," Joyce whispered when Vivian finished. "And the boys? Do they understand what's happening?" Jackson overheard more than I realized, Vivian admitted, but I don't think they grasped the seriousness. Joyce squeezed her daughter's hand. Children are resilient, but they deserve some truth. We'll find the right words together. That evening, as the sun set over the lake in spectacular shades of orange and purple, Vivian's phone rang. Michael's name flashed on the screen. "You're safe?" he asked immediately. "Yes, all of us." "Michael, the news is saying—" "I know. It's being contained, but it was bigger than we initially thought." His voice sounded strained, exhausted. "Vivian, there's something I need to tell you. You're not just a patrol officer, are you?" she guessed. A pause. "No, I'm FBI assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force. I've been undercover in Oak Ridge for 3 months. The confirmation of her suspicion should have felt vindicating, but instead, it stung. So everything was a lie. "Not everything," he insisted. "My backstory, yes, but my interactions with you and the boys, that was real, Vivian." She wanted to believe him, but found herself questioning every moment they'd shared. "Why tell me now?" "Because you deserve the truth. And because I've been authorized to brief you on certain aspects of the operation." He took a deep breath. "The group we apprehended was planning to deploy a biocontaminant at 3 locations tomorrow, including your son's elementary school." Vivian gasped, gripping the porch railing for support. "Your observations about the Blue House helped confirm our intelligence," Michael continued. "And your dinner invitation gave me legitimate access to a surveillance point we hadn't been able to establish." "So I was useful," Vivian said bitterly. "You were crucial," he corrected. "And I need to ask you one more thing. Did you ever tell anyone about the neighbor's unusual activities?" Vivian thought back. "Just Mrs. Henderson. She told me to mind my own business." "Eleanor Henderson?" Michael's tone sharpened. "Exactly what did you tell her? Just about the strange hours, the packages?" "Why?" "She's been taken in for questioning. We have reason to believe she was affiliated with the group." The revelation hit Vivian like a physical blow. Mrs. Henderson, the kindly widow who had lived next door for years, who had brought casseroles when the twins were born, who had helped hang Christmas lights after Thomas left. "That's impossible," Vivian whispered. "We found evidence in her home linking her to the operation. She was their lookout, Vivian. And she had files on you and the boys." The world tilted beneath Vivian's feet. "On us? Why?" "We believe they were concerned about your observations. You noticed too much." Michael paused. "There's more. The blue box Jackson mentioned, have you checked it recently?" Vivian felt a chill. "No, I grabbed it when we left but haven't opened it." "You should. In private." After the call ended, Vivian retrieved the blue document box from her luggage and locked herself in her mother's guest bathroom. With trembling fingers, she opened it. Everything looked untouched until she reached the bottom. There, beneath her mortgage papers, lay a small electronic device she had never seen before, a tracking bug. Her phone pinged with a text from Michael. "Did you find it?" "Yes," she typed back. "How did it get there?" "We believe during a school fundraiser at your house last month, Henderson had access to your bedroom." The violation of her private space, her sanctuary, sent waves of nausea through Vivian. All this time someone had been watching, listening, tracking her family's movements. Another text from Michael. "There's one more thing you should know. Thomas wasn't just away for work these past 3 years. Vivian stared at the message, uncomprehending. Then it clicked. Thomas, her ex, who had worked for the same pharmaceutical company the neighbor had claimed to work for. "Was he involved?" she typed, hands shaking so badly she had to correct multiple typos. "Not directly, but he's been in witness protection. His research attracted the wrong attention. That's why he left so suddenly." The revelation rocked Vivian to her core. All this time she'd believed Thomas had simply abandoned them, unable to handle fatherhood. She'd carried that betrayal like a stone in her heart for 3 years. "The boys," she typed, "do they need to know?" "Not yet. But when this is over, Thomas wants to see them. It's your decision." Vivian leaned against the cool tile wall, trying to process everything. Her quiet life in Oak Ridge had been built on foundations she never truly understood. The neighbors she'd waved to, the streets her children had played on, all had hidden dangers she'd been blind to. And Michael, was he just another layer of deception or something genuine amidst all the lies? Outside the bathroom door, she could hear the twins laughing with their grandmother. Despite everything, they were safe. For now, that would have to be enough. 3 days at Grandma Joyce's lake house stretched into a week. then 2. The twins settled into a summer-like routine of fishing off the dock, building sandcastles on the narrow beach, and helping their grandmother bake cookies that disappeared almost as quickly as they cooled. For them, this unexpected vacation was an adventure, their awareness of the danger they had escaped limited to vague notions of bad people and police work. For Vivian, each day brought new revelations that reshuffled her understanding of the past 3 years. Daily calls with Agent Foster and occasional updates from Michael painted a picture more complex than she could have imagined. The terror cell had been international, with connections to bioweapon research that had been stolen from legitimate pharmaceutical companies, including the one where Thomas had worked. Their plan had targeted not just the elementary school, but also the water treatment facility and the regional hospital, a coordinated attack that would have devastated the entire county. Mrs. Henderson's involvement had been the most shocking betrayal. The kindly widow had been recruited through an online group after her husband's death, left her financially vulnerable and emotionally isolated. She had been their eyes on Maple Street, reporting on neighbors' activities and helping establish the Blue House as their operational base. "We've recovered her journal," Agent Foster told Vivian during one of their calls. "She specifically noted your observations about the comings and goings. You were flagged as a potential threat nearly 2 months ago. But she brought us chicken soup when the boys had the flu last winter," Vivian said, still struggling to reconcile the maternal neighbor with the woman who had placed a tracking device in her bedroom. "People contain multitudes," Agent Foster replied. "She cared for you in her way, while simultaneously viewing you as a threat to her new purpose." On the 15th day at the lake house, as Vivian sat on the dock watching the twins attempt to catch perch with bamboo poles, her phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. Vivian. The voice was instantly familiar, though she hadn't heard it in 3 years. "Thomas," her throat constricted around his name. "You're safe? The boys too?" The concern in his voice sounded genuine, but Vivian had learned to question everything. "Yes. No thanks to you." The bitterness she'd carried burst forth despite her efforts to contain it. "I couldn't tell you," he said quietly. "They made that very clear when they placed me in protection. Any contact could have led them straight to you and the boys. So instead you just disappeared. Let us think you'd abandoned us." "It was the hardest decision I've ever made," Thomas replied, his voice breaking. "But it kept you safe. Until now." Vivian watched Jackson help Daniel untangle his fishing line, their golden heads bent together in concentration. "They barely remember you." "I know. But I never stopped watching over you, even from a distance." A chill ran through Vivian. "What does that mean? The college fund deposits, the anonymous Christmas gifts, the life insurance policy that appeared in your name? That was me, working through channels that couldn't be traced. The mysterious financial windfalls that had helped Vivian keep their home, afford childcare, survive. She had attributed them to clerical errors, forgotten investments, Thomas's guilty conscience manifesting through his lawyer. Never had she imagined they were deliberate lifelines from a man in hiding. "Why now?" she asked. "Why are you calling now?" "Because it's over. The last members of the network were arrested yesterday in Toronto. My handler says the threat assessment has been downgraded. I can come home if you'll allow it." The words hung between them, weighted with 3 years of absence, grief, and misunderstanding. "The boys deserve to know their father," Vivian said finally. "But we're not the family you left behind, Thomas. We've changed." "I know," he said softly. "I don't expect to walk back into the life we had. I just want a chance to explain, to be part of their lives again, in whatever way you'll permit." After the call ended, Vivian remained on the dock, watching the sun sparkle on the lake's surface. So much had changed in such a short time. Her perception of her marriage, her neighborhood, her very life, had been fundamentally altered. And then there was Michael. He had called every day, his concern extending beyond professional duty. Yesterday he had mentioned that the FBI was concluding operations on Maple Street. The hazard teams had declared the area safe. Residents could return home by the weekend. "Will you go back?" he had asked, something vulnerable in his voice. "I don't know," Vivian had answered honestly. "Nothing feels safe anymore." "I could help," he had offered, not as FBI agent Reeves, but as Michael, the guy who had the best lasagna of his life at your table. The memory brought a small smile to Vivian's lips now. Whatever game of deception had brought Michael to her door that first day, what had developed between them felt genuine. That evening, as the twins helped Joyce set the table for dinner, Vivian's phone lit up with a video call request from Michael. "I have something to show you," he said when she answered. The camera panned to reveal Maple Street, cleaned up, barricades removed, looking deceptively normal. Then it shifted to her yellow house with its basketball hoop in the driveway. "Your home is safe," Michael said, walking up her front path. "The agency had a cleaning crew go through every house on the street. Everything's been checked and cleared." He climbed her porch steps and turned the camera to show a vase of fresh flowers on her welcome mat. "And these are from me." A poor apology for the deception, but a genuine thank you for the dinner that changed everything. Tears pricked at Vivian's eyes. "I don't know if I can go back there." "You don't have to decide now," Michael assured her. "But when you're ready, your home is waiting." "And so am I, if you'll give me a chance to explain everything properly." That night, after the twins were asleep, Vivian sat with her mother on the porch, sharing a bottle of wine and the full story, including Thomas's call and Michael's flowers. "Life never takes the path we expect," Joyce mused, refilling their glasses. "When your father died, I thought my story was over. Then I found this place, built a new life, discovered painting." She gestured to her lake landscapes hanging on the walls inside. "Sometimes the worst moments lead to unexpected gifts." "So what would you do?" Vivian asked. "About Thomas? About Michael? About going home?" Joyce considered for a moment. "I'd remember that you're stronger than you know. You've raised those boys alone for 3 years. You observed what others missed. You trusted your instincts and saved your family. Whatever you decide, trust yourself to handle it." The next morning, Vivian woke with clarity. Over breakfast, she gently explained to the twins that their father had been away keeping other people safe, like a superhero with a secret identity. Now his mission was complete, and he wanted to see them. "Is he coming to live with us again?" Daniel asked, eyes wide. "No, honey, but he'll be nearby, and you can build a new relationship with him." "What about Officer Reeves?" Jackson asked shrewdly. "He likes you, Mom. I could tell." Vivian felt her cheeks warm. "We'll see. First, we need to decide about going home." To her surprise, both boys immediately shouted, "Yes." "You miss our house?" Vivian asked. "And my rock collection," Daniel added seriously. "And basketball with Tyler next door," Jackson chimed in. Their resilience humbled her. While she had been processing betrayal and danger, they had been missing the simple comforts of home. 3 days later, they returned to Maple Street. The blue house stood empty, yellow police tape still visible around its perimeter. Mrs. Henderson's house had a for sale sign in the yard, but their yellow house waited exactly as they had left it, Michael's flowers now inside on the kitchen table. As the twins raced to check their rooms, Vivian stood in her kitchen, running her fingers along the counter where she had prepared that fateful lasagna dinner. So much had changed since that night, yet somehow she felt stronger for having weathered the storm. Her phone chimed with a text from Michael. "Welcome home. Dinner tomorrow? My turn to cook." Before she could reply, another message arrived, this one from Thomas. "The boys' school called. I've been added to their emergency contact list per your instructions. Thank you, Vivian." She stood in the golden afternoon light of her kitchen, a woman at a crossroads. Behind her lay a past built on secrets and half-truths. Ahead stretched a future with possibilities she hadn't imagined 2 weeks ago. A chance for her sons to know their father, a potential new beginning with Michael, and her own rediscovered strength. Outside, the twins had already found their basketball and were taking turns, shooting hoops in the driveway. Life on Maple Street would never return to what it had been before, but perhaps it could be something better, something built on truth, courage, and second chances. Vivian stepped onto her front porch and breathed deeply. For the first time in years, she felt truly at home in her own life.